Hi guys, welcome back to another episode by Mining Store. Today we have a very special guest with us, Simon Harman from the Loki community. You want to introduce yourself, Simon, and just let us know a little bit about the Loki project?
Sure. My name is Simon. I'm the CEO of the Loki project. We're a privacy-based, decentralized communications and transaction technology thingy. We have three products. We have the Loki blockchain, which is a proof of service, proof of stake hybrid chain that creates the sort of masternode network that we call service nodes. On top of that, we have LokiNet, which is an onion routing network that utilizes the service node infrastructure. And we also have Session, which is our latest product, the one we're most excited about, which is a secure communications app that relies on the service node network to be able to send end-to-end encrypted metadata-less messages. So it's a system where you can create a public key pair on your phone, and someone else can do the same on their phone, and you guys can have a conversation without anyone else on earth being able to know what is being said, or even that the conversation is taking place in the first place. So a range of privacy technologies that we deal in. We've been around for a couple of years now. We're based in Melbourne. And there's a few of us in the States as well. There's about 30 of us working on this full time at this point.
Wow, it's growing.
Steaming along. Just launched Session last week, so very, very excited about that. Keen to talk about that more.
Oh, for sure. We'll definitely jump into it a bit more later. But yeah, that's great. I mean, we've been following the Loki community for quite some time and the project itself. Back in 2018, I know a lot of our members were mining it. So, it's good to finally jump on board with yourself. I've had a communication with you over the messages, but good to have a chat with you today. So we'll jump into a couple of questions. Some of these questions are actually from our community, and some of them are from myself and Cal, my co-founder. But the first one I want to know is just why did you and the team found the Loki project, and what did your vision look like when you started the project compared to now?
So I think we kind of knew each other before Loki. We were hanging out at a local blockchain meetup here in Melbourne called the Blockchain Center, the talk and trade mostly, but also Key ran the Monero meetup for a while as well. And we were really excited by decentralized technology for years before this. We'd all been interested in Tor and Bitcoin and things like that. And I think when I came across the Monero project, and when Key came across it as well before me, he got really excited by just how comprehensive this three relatively simple systems of cryptography could be used to produce a really excellent outcome, like pretty much a flawless outcome in terms of privacy. There's trade-offs and everything else, but I think the thing we got really excited about was that there are ways of using technology such that instead of it being this leaky thing that just spreads information everywhere, we can come up with ways to actually make sure that it is, extremely watertight. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of thinking and a lot of effort, because it's easy to undermine that if you're not careful.
Oh, for sure.
But I think we got really, really excited about the concept that, everything to an extent can be made more private, and some things should be made more private than others. So something I got really excited about as well was secure messaging, and we're also interested in underwriting and that sort of thing. And we were obviously very interested in cryptocurrency. So our initial vision for Loki is like, okay, so what can we do with this amazing technology, this Monero thing? What can we do with an incentivized node network? What can we actually do with this Sybil-resistant incentivized group of computers to actually provide people with extra services? So that was the thought experiment that sort of kicked Loki off. And in terms of the vision and how it's changed, I think when we started, we weren't really that sure exactly how the service node network could be fully utilized. We weren't really sure about what it was really capable of. And over the next 6 months of Loki's life, that really crystallized. And now we're at a state where we're very aware of its capabilities. It's been operating for a while now, and we're building out the functionality. We've built most of it, actually. So most of the stuff that was in the original white paper is now done. And we're sort of working towards leveling it up again, making that next layer, making Session our main product a truly excellent contender in the field of private messaging. So yeah, I mean, it always changes. It always changes with the times and the environment and the people around you, of course. But yeah, it's been a good journey so far. It's plenty of
Absolutely. I mean, the service node layer, it has unlimited capabilities like a lot of blockchains really. But as you say, like kind of started off with the messaging thing and then you built this service node layer. I was just thinking when you were talking there, like what do you think, the maximum capabilities of the service node layer is? Do you think it can really be used to anything or, is there limitations?
No, I don't think it should. Like blockchain, I don't think it should be used for everything.
Sure.
I don't think it's capable of anything. I think that's just a bunch of crap that people like saying because,
of course,
that means their imaginations can run wild.
Yeah.
Service node network is limited by a few things. It's limited by the number of nodes that come online, and that's got to do with the service node rewards that are available. And it's also limited by the cost of actually running one. So if it's very expensive to have the hardware and the networking capabilities to operate a service node, then that reduces the profitability of earning the reward. So there's only so much tolerance for that before nodes start dropping off the network. And we wrote like a couple of crypto economic papers about this phenomenon where you have, a fixed or scaling cost of operation depending on how much bandwidth, how much storage, how much computation that each node has to perform in order to stay on the network, and how much reward they actually return for that. So it's got to outweigh it significantly. Otherwise, the effort of setting it all up, the opportunity costs, all these things come into play. So it's quite a complex thing. We're pretty confident with the scaling for Session, for example. So I did some maths like 7 or 8 months ago now to try and work out, how much storage would be required and would be used for 1 million daily active users sending a number of messages a day on average across the whole network, and how much disk space that would require on each node. And the answer was 1 gigabyte.
Wow, really?
And that was back then. It's probably even less now because there's more nodes to split.
Yeah, okay.
So, there's quite a lot of capacity for growth. It really doesn't cost a whole lot to go from, a basic tier virtual private server or VPS up to a more advanced one. So, as the network requirements grow, as the bandwidth grows, as the users grow, service node operators will have to start upgrading their underlying hardware so they're able to keep up with the requirements of the network. But that's really nice because it's kind of this flexible scalability thing. It's this self-regulating sort of environment whereby if you don't have the hardware to do it, your node will go down and it will get deregistered. So you have a very strong financial incentive to make sure that you actually do have the capability of participating in the network effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, being a service node host provider as well, I've experienced that. And, at the end of the day, it's about keeping the network secure. So, yeah, obviously, it's a very important aspect of the project there. One thing I wouldn't mind asking is, there's heaps of different people that can use Loki project and they can use the messaging service. Without going into too much detail of why they should use it, which entities or which people do you think are most likely to use the service?
There's a lot of people out there that need privacy, particularly with secure communications. Session isn't really built for a specific demographic or a specific set of organizations. It's everything. We have so many conversations online these days over relatively unsecure platforms just because it's that reliable. We had, Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and all these things, which originally was just used to stay in touch with friends and family, and that's fine.
Of course, yeah.
But because they're so reliable and so available, we've then come to depend upon services like them and others to do all of our communications, whether it's legal, whether it's medical, we're talking to journalists, confidential business, any of these matters, which, you should be able to be confident that you can actually have a secure conversation there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're having it on these platforms that it's probably not that suited to it just because we've become so complacent because these other services are just reliable and they're always there and everyone's got them. So everyone has to have secure, or everyone has to have sensitive conversations at some stage in their lives. Some more than others, and those journalists and those secure, privacy-conscious individuals are potentially the more active users that we're going to be targeting at first. But there isn't really a specific user group for this technology. It really is applicable to everyone.
That's good. One thing, you touch on a lot of areas of obviously running a project. You need to have a secure blockchain built. You need to build all these service nodes, which is a lot of the back end that users won't necessarily notice. But then there's also making things friendly, like a friendly user interface, and then obviously marketing out the project, getting people to use it. Which area do you feel is most important, or what do you feel like you guys have focused on over the past 2 years, and what do you think you're going to focus on for the next year or so?
Yeah, so the interplay between the product, the technology, and the marketing is something that's been playing out in the startup ecosystem for 40 years now.
Yeah.
We've had various startups of various sizes run into these issues where they've got a product and they're marketing it really well, but then the technology stack just breaks down, or they're not doing any marketing and they're still trying to get their product together, but suddenly you get all these people come in and the whole thing just explodes. And then many more where they've got technology and they've got a product, but they just can't sell the damn thing and no one can use it. That's happened a lot in crypto.
Yeah.
It is a difficult thing to manage. Where do you put the energy? But I think the answer is you've got to do all three, and you have to be careful about where you spend resources in each regard. We've been spending a lot of time in the last 2 years pretty much just on technology and to a lesser extent product.
Yeah, of course.
And that's still being fleshed out, particularly the product. The UI that you see now in session is not the final vision that we want. It's just we ran out of time to keep iterating on it.
Of course.
I was pushing hard to get the product out so that we can actually start working on that marketing piece a lot. It is possible to market a product that doesn't exist, but in my opinion, it's a gross waste of money and gross waste of time. So
yeah, absolutely.
We haven't been doing it, but we have built a pretty big marketing team now. And so, it's their job now to run with this release and get it out there. So
absolutely. Yeah. From a bit of an outside perspective, I suppose, with your own baby and your own product, getting it out there can be, a bit daunting. But from our perspective, who are actually using it, everything seems to be working really well. So credit to the team and yourself, of course. But yeah, I suppose, I know you're going to see all the bad details or the things that, how good it can be. But from what I've used, it's been really easy to use. So it's really, really good. One thing that I wanted to tap into, obviously there's a project, and then there's the actual application that people are using on it. But the other side is there's investors and people obviously looking to buy the token or run service nodes for a return. How important is the price of Loki to the actual future, I suppose, sustainability of the project? If we go from two extremes, if it goes to say $10, it's currently sitting at about 50 cents or 40 cents US. As opposed to if it goes all the way down to 10 cents. How important is that to the project itself?
The price is important to the service node network, obviously, because it interplays into that crypto economics I was talking about before, the cost of running a node.
Of course.
So the reward's always got to be enough to offset and exceed the total cost of running the infrastructure of the whole network, right? So the price is important, and that's been factored into the crypto economics as well. For the longevity of the project, in terms of us being the Loki Foundation, able to acquire funds, acquire resources, continue developing, continue pushing, the price is really quite important. The price at which we're able to sell our Loki in future fundraising rounds, for example, is a major factor in our long-term success. It's not an immediate issue. But it is kind of important. Our strategy around this, though, is really simple. We believe that we've developed a consumer app here, and if we can demonstrate that it's got potential to become quite widely used, in the order of millions of users, then I think it will be quite easy to be able to do future fundraising rounds. I think it'll be quite an easy sell for people who want to get involved in the service node network and be a part of the future success of Loki. So I'm in the near term, in the next 1 or 2 years, that's the sort of thing I'm looking for.
Sure.
In the years that follow, when we do actually start to see the numbers grow from a few 100,000 to a couple of million to tens of millions, if it goes that way, then that's when we can start to see some real revenue being brought back into the Loki ecosystem through things like the Loki name system. So we have these monetization features that actually require that people get Loki and burn it. So it offsets the inflation that's occurring when the service node networks are earning rewards. So you have this supply and demand thing. It's not paying fees directly to the service nodes, but it's distributing the value of the burn across the wider network. And that's the sort of thing that we really want to encourage, and that's the sort of thing we really want to enable in the future.
For sure. I mean, you guys are doing all the right things. I mean, you've had, I know you've had economists come through and look at the early day tokenomics of the papers, everything like that. And I've spoken with Jagerman, obviously one of your lead developers, quite a lot as well. Great addition to the project. I knew him a little bit before he actually joined with Loki. And I was very happy to see he was on board. But I suppose that leads into the question with the tokenomics. I have found it incredible how everything has played out. What would you put it down to? Like, what do you think the most successful thing for Loki's tokenomics was? Because I've seen a lot of other proof of stake projects just decline their price, overinflate. If you could put it onto maybe 1 or 2 things, what do you think puts Loki ahead of other projects?
We could have done better. We could have, our initial emission curve was stupidly steep. We wanted to do that to offset the pre-mine that we just conducted. But, I think that was quite an ideological move where we wanted to, sort of dilute out our own efforts in the sale.
Of course,
in a relatively good fashion so that, because it was a private sale, right? So we wanted to make sure that the community felt involved so that, there was some ability for them to also participate in the market and keep it going. But I think in hindsight, that really wasn't necessary. And actually, our ability to quickly see that our inflation curve was going to cause us a lot of issues was the reason why we generated that crypto economics paper. The maths just really wasn't working out. We needed to have a more sustainable model. And I think the thing that sets us apart from a lot of other projects is we don't just go, oh, whatever, it'll be fine. We'll just use Bitcoins or some throwaway like that, which was never really all that thought through. The key idea in Bitcoin is not that it goes to 21 million, it's that it tapers off to a limited number over some period of time. That's the idea, that's it. We had a more complicated understanding of that, using the lessons of several projects that have come before us, and actually be able to look carefully at operating costs of service nodes, staking requirements, emission curves, all this sort of stuff. So I think it's just having the foresight to just say, what is the actual situation, and doing a study about it, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that you need to manage is incentive for those service nodes, and not overcompensating them to the fact that things are just becoming inflated, but also not making it so low that it's not worth them running the node. So, I mean, as I said again, like as a service node operator, I've felt that there's always been a good balance there, and so credit to you guys. I think it's going well. We're seeing the price go up, maintaining its level. And the rewards are still coming through for those service nodes. We haven't even reached mass adoption or anything like that, so who knows what can come later. But yeah, from my perspective, things are working quite well. So one thing from one of our community members, Wolfie, he was asking a question. He invested back early in the day, so he's been probably one of the longest investors in our group in the Loki project. One of the most impressive aspects of the Loki project was the amount of seed funding that it actually received. One thing he was wondering is how long do you guys project before seed funding starts to run out, and how sustainable is the current project based on rewards or foundation rewards coming through?
So that's a good question. The seed funding that we received in our pre-sale will keep us going for quite a bit longer yet. But we're in that situation where, we've kind of reached sort of an apex of our burn rate. We don't really want to go any higher than what we are currently spending, because then it does start to shorten our runway in quite an uncomfortable way. At the moment, we haven't made any action to sell any of the foundation's Loki or any of the rewards that it's received. And to be frank, I think even if we did, it wouldn't buy us anywhere near enough time that would actually warrant selling it. So the price has got to be a lot higher. There may be something that we have to do to allow us to get more as well, just because, in order for us to be able to sustain this level of development, sustain this level of promotion, sustain this level of activity, that is actually quite expensive. And this is a pretty major project. We're talking about 30 full-time people here, some of which are very talented engineers who can earn, hundreds of thousands of dollars in Silicon Valley. So, $100,000 a year in Silicon Valley. So, we've got requirements, we got project requirements, we got the vision for the project, and there are resources that we will need. At the moment, we're fine. For the next couple of years, we'll be fine. But in order to not have to worry about it so much and give us a little more headroom, we are actually looking at potentially running a fundraising round towards the end of the year. We're exploring how we might do that exactly. It will be a more traditional VC-based fundraising round. It will not be a public sale.
Okay.
There will be lockup times involved as well. So it will look more like a traditional VC deal, like a Series B of sorts. But that hasn't been confirmed yet. We don't have any details available for that. But if you're out there in the community and you think you might know a VC that might be interested in participating in a weird Series B with a not-for-profit organization, here's their chance. Here's their chance.
No, that's it. I mean, I'm sure there might be some people in our community or people, off-stemmed our community that might be interested. But it's a hard thing to manage, having a team of 30 people trying to get things to its maximum capability. I mean, things have gone so well now. You obviously don't want to overextend and have too much development going on and not have the funds to secure it. But I guess the exciting thing is that there's something real genuine to be built here, and you're solving a major issue in the current global, scale, which is privacy, and it's being breached a lot. So I suppose talking on that note of privacy, something that the team would have had to answer a lot early days is things coming out with legislative incursions, particularly with the Australian government looking to do some funny things out there. Do you want to maybe just give a little bit of a background of what the Australian government is doing with privacy, how that might affect the project, and what your kind of plan B is if there's legislative crackdowns?
So in Australia, we have a pretty different legislative framework to the way the US deals with privacy. But to be frank, the US is just as bad as Australia.
Of course.
I'm not exactly sure what this massive freak out is about this anti-encryption bill. It's not just encryption. This bill applies to everything on the internet. If you're a communication service provider, that's the word that they use. So that applies to phone calls, SMS, everything. Whether you're doing emails or whatever, it doesn't matter. Even if it doesn't involve encryption, it doesn't matter. It's on the table. And what they can do is they can request that companies build capabilities within the software that they can use against specific individuals.
For sure.
So say, for example, I am let's say I'm a food delivery business, okay? And I have access to all of my driver's information, for example. This is just an example that I've thought off the top of my head. But let's say the immigration department and the AFP, the Australian Federal Police, wants to follow up on people that have let their visas run over or whatever. They're not allowed to be here anymore. They're trying to find them. So they might issue a TCN to like Foodora or something like that says, build a capability within your software so that if we give you a warrant for someone's
private details,
whatever, arrest actually, if they're committed they can only be used to commit serious offences at this stage. So this was actually a bad example. They wouldn't use it for deportation purposes, but point is that they can ask you to create a capability that will allow them to access information that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. However, in Loki, this doesn't apply because the only thing that they're allowed to do is to create a capability that can be used against specific users. It does not allow the government to request the creation of systemic vulnerabilities. You can't push out a vulnerability across the whole network, across all the users. It's not allowed in the legislation.
Okay.
It's explicitly prevented. So because Loki is already open source, all of the source code is available. If they wanted to create modified clients that could do sketchy shit, they can already do that. They can download the source code, modify it, and then it is their responsibility to inject it onto a specific user's device.
For sure.
We are not capable of doing that. We're not Google, we're not Apple, we don't have access to the user's device. So we really can't help in this regard. And we don't have access to any user data either, obviously, otherwise this whole thing would be totally pointless. So yeah, the whole TOLA bill, the existence and access bill, for us is really not an issue. And I think, a lot of people freak out because, the Australian government has an anti-encryption stance. That's not exactly true. There are people in the government that think that this is a good idea. There are people in the government that think this is a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And that applies to every Western democracy. There is a constant pushing and a pulling and a tension depending on the government of the day. So yes, Australia appears to have a bit of an anti-privacy thing going on right now, but there are still members of the parliament that are pushing for it. And so, it's going to be a swinging pendulum kind of affair. The same happens in the US and Germany and the UK, everywhere. So, it does appear that there is an increased risk of us being here in Australia right now, but we built this system such that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we don't have central access to anything. If we were Signal or WhatsApp, it may be an issue.
Yeah.
And we might be able to give up contact lists and information like that because we would be centrally storing the messages. But given that we've designed the system to explicitly not do that, it's not really an issue.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really cool thing that, you guys, it's not like you got halfway through your project and then you became aware of this legislation that might come out. Like, as you say, you were aware of it. And for me, if anything, it puts Loki in more of a competitive advantage for people to use this product, knowing that, with decentralization and the way that it's built, I personally think that it's less susceptible to being, I suppose, tarnished by Australian legislation. So thanks for the in-depth rundown there on that.
Yeah, I mean, the only threat really is that if, the AFP rocks up and puts a gun to our head and says, fucking do it.
Yeah.
Fucking put that back door in. But we're in Australia. It just won't, we're pretty safe here. We do have, good, strong legal protections. It's very rare that you hear of, back corridor deals and court cases and things of that nature going on. The only time that really applies is with people with very, very high security clearances that are doing work for, ASIO and ASD and all that, which obviously makes sense. But, we don't hold any classified information here. So we're not beholden to those same rules. We are public citizens. We do have those protections. We're pretty well-known individuals. It'd be very hard to make us disappear. It's just not going to happen. This is Australia, not Soviet Russia.
For sure. Well, I suppose that's pretty much wraps things up on my end, Simon. So the last thing that I'll just ask yourself, is there anything that you would like to share with our community or, your community for maybe future things that are coming up with Loki? And also, if you can just touch on how people that are advocates for the project can help you guys kind of achieve what you want to achieve in the next year.
Yeah, sure. So two things you can do straight away is go to getsession.org. Download the app for whatever phone or computer that you have, and rate and review it. If it's on Google Play or Apple or the App Store, rating and reviewing helps us a lot. You have no idea. It helps us so much. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. Try the app out, of course. If you do have any issues, please let us know. That also helps us. And just use the thing. Get your friends on board. Spread the word about secure messaging. It's a very important issue that people don't take seriously enough. These are all things that you can do that help us immensely. If you're more interested in the Loki cryptocurrency side of things, if you're interested in participating in this network and actually routing people's messages, storing people's messages, and earning rewards to do it, you can look at our documentation. join the Service Node community chats and sort of get involved there. Of course, you can buy Loki on KuCoin as well. That always helps. But
Yes.
there's many things you can do. There's many ways you can get involved. We got lots of papers out there that you can read if you're interested in the crypto economics. But yeah, the main thing, getsession.org, download the app, rate and review. That's the key takeaway. It'll take you 5 minutes and it'll be fun. And you should do it because it will be great.
I've used it myself and I enjoyed it. We played around with it. I think as it gets even further developed, people are going to use it even more. But just to wrap things up, thanks so much for your time today, Simon. And yeah, we look forward to seeing the progression over the next year or 5 years and future with Loki.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, mate.
Thanks, mate. Take care.
Ciao.